Molly from the Feed. Today I am in my home kitchen with our friends at Driscoll's Berries, and I am going to be showing you how to make a delicious raspberry crumb cake. So this crumb cake is actually a recipe that has been in my family for many years. I've kind of been playing with it, adapting it, and the version we're making today I think is the best it's going to get. So I'm so excited to share it with you, and it really couldn't be easier. So let's get started. So let's talk a little bit about the ingredients. So obviously the star of our show here is these Driscoll's raspberries. They look and smell amazing. As you can see, they're absolutely perfect. I wish you could smell them. So that's gonna be sort of the basic flavor for our cake. And then all standard stuff. So 1 stick of butter, 1 egg. In here I have our dry ingredients, so all-purpose flour, baking powder, kosher salt, cinnamon. A little bit of granulated sugar is going to be in the base of our cake, some vanilla extract, and then for wet ingredients we have some milk and sour cream that I just combined in this jar. And then in my book, any good cake should have a crumb topping, so we are going to go big with the crumb topping. So for that, I just have some more all-purpose flour, some brown sugar, some cinnamon, kosher salt, and then some more cold butter that we're gonna work in to make our crumble topping, and then just a little bit more vanilla extract. So before we start cooking, let's just talk about preparing the pan. So I have just a standard 8-inch tin baking pan here, and I have a sheet of parchment paper that you can see I've kind of cut into this interesting shape. So this is going to ensure that the entire pan is lined with parchment, so nothing's gonna stick. And then it's also gonna kind of give me these handy handles so that I can lift the cake out of the pan when it's done baking. So all you do is you basically line the paper up and you cut out, 4 corners, just like this. And then I will fold the paper and then just tuck it neatly in the pan. I like to take, just to make things super simple, I have these little chip clips and I like to just clip the sides so that when I fill the pan, I'm not kind of struggling with the paper. You could also use like binder clips, anything you kind of have hanging out at home. And let's start making our crumb topping. So in this bowl, I have our brown sugar, a little bit of all-purpose flour, some cinnamon, and kosher salt. I'm just gonna use my fingers to sort of combine this really well. Okay, I'm gonna add our vanilla extract. And then this is important, I'm gonna add 4 tablespoons of cold butter. So you want the butter to be cold so that you can really work it into the flour without it just sort of melting. And you wanna work this together until you have pea-sized clumps. This is looking great now. So I'm actually gonna pop this in the fridge because I want it to stay nice and cold when we add it to the top of our cake. One thing I wanted to talk about with that crumb topping, obviously it relies heavily on brown sugar to give like that sort of like rich, buttery, delicious crumb. If you don't have brown sugar, you can always make some just from pantry ingredients. You can use some granulated sugar and mix in a little bit of molasses, and if you mix that together, you're gonna get brown sugar. That's all it is. But let's talk about the dry ingredients. So in this bowl, I have our all-purpose flour, cinnamon, baking powder, and kosher salt. And standard stuff, all I'm gonna do is just whisk it. It's 2 teaspoons of baking powder, so a decent amount of leavener. So whenever you're using a leavener like baking powder, baking soda, you always want to make sure to really incorporate it into your dry ingredients so that you don't get any sort of like pockets of leavener in your final cake. So I mentioned before that this is a family recipe. So it's actually 2 family recipes kind of combined into one. So the first one is by my grandma Jean, who was from New England, and this is just like such a classic Sunday morning coffee cake to kind of enjoy with the rest of the family. It's super buttery, just like everything you could ever want in a breakfast cake. And then the second person that inspired this recipe is actually my brother-in-law's mother, Jane. So Jean and Jane we have to thank for this gorgeous recipe. And she makes a version using blueberries, and it's so delicious. I actually often request it as my birthday cake. I had it at my wedding shower. I probably make it, I don't know, at least 12 times a year. It's so good. And I kind of took the best aspects of both of those recipes and combined them into this raspberry version. So one thing to note, any Driscoll's berry would be delicious in here. So as I mentioned, blueberries work really well. If I'm doing blueberries, I like to add a little bit of like lemon zest. I think that that's a really nice combination. You could do finely diced strawberries. You could do blackberries. You could do any kind of combination of the berries together. The options are really endless. And then in terms of the flour, like as we're cooking more at home and looking for pantry swaps, I've made this with half whole wheat flour. You can use all-purpose flour. You can get really creative and it's super adaptable. So don't be afraid to kind of play around with the basic ratio and make it your own. Okay, so let's build the base of our cake. So I have my trusty stand mixer here. I am going to add in 1 stick of unsalted butter that I have softened to room temperature. And I am going to turn this mixer on, and I'm just gonna let this butter kind of like mix up a little bit before I add the sugar. Probably process it at about medium speed for 1 minute. So our butter has softened. I'm just gonna scrape down the side of the bowl. Now I'm gonna add in our granulated sugar. 3/4 a cup of granulated sugar and a nice sugar cloud. And I'm gonna let this cream together for about 3 to 4 minutes until it's really nice and light and fluffy. So this is looking great. I'm just gonna scrape down my bowl. And I'm going to add in 1 egg and then our vanilla extract. We'll just mix this for probably about 1 more minute. Okay, I have combined our egg and our vanilla really well. I'm just gonna scrape down our bowl 1 more time, and then we're gonna start alternating the wet and dry ingredients. So the key sort of thing to do here is to make sure that you're not over mixing the flour. So mixing flour creates gluten. Gluten will make a tough cake, so nobody wants that. So I'm gonna start by adding about 1/3 of our flour mix. You can eyeball it. And I'm gonna turn the mixer on for probably 10 seconds. I just wanna mix it until I no longer see streaks of flour. Okay, perfect. So now I'm gonna go in with half of our milk and sour cream mixture. So if you are at home, you don't have sour cream, you don't like sour cream, you could use Greek yogurt, you could use whatever regular yogurt you have, you could use all milk, you could just replace the sour cream for another half cup of milk. It's pretty adaptable, so whatever you have. So I'm gonna add half of this. I'm gonna turn this on and just let this mix again for like 10 seconds. Okay, I'm gonna go in with 1 more third of our flour. Okay, the rest of our milk and sour cream. And then we'll end with the final bit of our flour mixture. So I like to stop the mixer when I still see a few streaks of flour, and I like to fold the rest in by hand. It just ensures, again, we're not building up that gluten and that we're gonna have a really nice moist cake. So as you can see, I am just folding in any remaining flour bits, and this is actually looking pretty good. So now we are ready for our raspberries. Okay, our star ingredient, we have our Driscoll's organic raspberries. I am going to very gently fold in this entire 6-ounce package. You just want to be careful not to completely mash the berries. So you're going to use like a J-fold to try to keep as many of those berries whole as possible. Okay, so I already washed these, so I'm just going to pop the whole container in. And again, just very gently fold them into your batter. Okay. So because this batter is quite thick, I like to use a ice cream scooper to kind of evenly place it in my pan. That way I don't have to use too much force when I'm trying to smooth it into an even layer, and I can preserve those beautiful raspberries. So now I like to just take an offset spatula, sort of evenly spread this batter into our pan, which is nice and easy because we use that scooper. And this is where those clips really come in handy, because I don't have to worry about the paper kind of moving all over the place. This is looking great. I'm just going to grab our crumb topping from the fridge. Okay, so I know that this is gonna look like a lot, but I promise you it's the perfect amount. So don't be shy, you're just gonna kind of throw it in there. You want every bit of this batter covered with this delicious crumb topping. And then we are going to take the other pack of Driscoll's berries that we have left, and I'm just going to add about half of them to the top of our cake, just for a beautiful pop of color. Okay, so now this is ready to go into the oven. I'm gonna remove our clips, and I'm gonna bake this in a 350-degree oven for about 45 minutes. Okay, I just took this cake out. It looks so good. I'm gonna let it cool a little bit, and then I will slice it up and give it a try. And because you can never have too many Driscoll's raspberries, I'm just gonna add a few fresh ones on top. Can't wait to cut this. Okay, so I let our cake cool for as long as I possibly could, but now I need to have a bite. So I'm just gonna sneak off a little corner piece here. Ooh, still warm. Look how delicious. We have those ripe berries. So good. Okay, I'm getting first dibs on this before the rest of the family can tear into it. Give it a try. I love it. Those sweet, floral, delicious Driscoll's raspberries with sort of like that buttery, toffee-like crumble thanks to the brown sugar. You really can't beat it. It's such an easy recipe the entire family will love. Get your kids in the kitchen to help you bake this. It's such an easy project. It's perfect for dessert, for breakfast, brunch, you name it. You can get the full recipe for it on driscolls.com. Thank you all so much for watching, and we'll see you soon.